Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's William and Nick from a very, very hot summer day here in Europe. I hope you're
Hi
having a
everyone.
great day. So, welcome to our webinar. Now it's a weekly appointment called Rethinking Startup Success. Today is about short-term versus long-term, and we're gonna explore more in deep like what that means for startups, but also for investors. Today is also about, of course, especially about Evalify. And it's always about Evalify. And just to remind you, it's what we built, and it's an AI-powered platform that transforms pitch decks into clear insights on patent risks and opportunities, helping investors and non-IP experts avoid legal pitfalls and discover hidden potential in new startups in minutes. And we always know about, as this is the topic for today, the short-term versus long-term. We hear a lot with all the investors we talk about with the fact that revenue talks louder than IP, and traction it's more important, but that's for sure something that to take into account for the short term. But as we will see today, the IP has the biggest significance in the long term, not only for protection, because it's really important for startups, but also for risk and for innovation reasons. And we will explore that with Nick today. And so we want to especially explore as a first topic for today, how does Evalify aid startups in navigating the complex patent landscape? So it actually tells you where not to go, and that's the risk part. And we do that in three main ways. We have a way to leverage patent analytics. So we provide access to over 200 million patent documents across 170 jurisdictions, and we help startups identify potential IP conflicts or even areas for innovation. And in terms of the second dimension is cost and speed. So with services that are starting at $249, and we deliver results in less than 15 minutes, 1-5. You heard that well. We actually offer a swift and economical alternative to traditional IP consultation processes, which, if you're not familiar with, are way more laborious and costly and more difficult for anyone, actually. And then the third part is about the strategic foresight. So as we leverage AI, with Evalify, we can assist in interpreting complex patent data, and we offer startups better and strategic advantage in planning and positioning. So just to recap, very important, we tell you with our startups where not to go. We leverage patent analytics. We have a service starting at $249, so cost and speed, and then strategic foresight. But let's go deeper in this topic, right? It's really important, and wanted to ask you, Nick, as we are in this journey together for a while, what are the high costs and risks associated with patent litigation for startups?
Yeah, right. So thank you so much for the intro. And I also want to put briefly before we dive into that into this answer, like putting in context what you just said and summarize one point. Today we are here for a short term versus long term, to analyze this aspect of investing in startup, building startups, thinking about making business successful. And there's a lot of effort and there's a lot of focus in the beginning in understanding, in getting to the product market fit, and understanding like how can I find customers that are repeatable, scalable, and then understand how can I find more and what are the adjacent ones, and keep going and growing the customer base and the revenue and everything else. So this is quite obvious. We don't have to state the obvious. It's the focus. It's important. If business is not profitable or never going to be profitable, it's not worth pursuing this opportunity, this business opportunity, neither as a builder, neither as an investor. And that's where we say anyway that is the short-term focus, and there is also, let's say, laser focus attention on that. But there are a lot of other aspects like freedom to operate, like patents, like the patent landscape around an idea, surrounding an idea. So you asked me about patent litigations. So why patent litigations, and why in the early stages, and why if we are talking about short term, and why patents at all? So the entire point here is we need to understand that when we're making a decision today on a startup, we are essentially pouring money on something that will likely grow, succeed, and we'll see the benefits in some years. And in some years, the same happens with the intellectual property part. You have today something you can protect. You have today an asset. You have today existing patents, and you benchmark the current patents with the idea you have. And in the moment you make a decision today, a bad decision today in IP, that has an effect 2-3 years in the future when a patent litigation happens. And the reason why we get to patent litigations typically is that we did not check if we got the freedom to operate. So that's what typically happens, and what is experienced here. And talking about the cost of patent litigations, we're talking about up to $4 million per case just in the US. We're talking about $250,000, $500,000 in Europe. We're talking about almost $1 million in Japan, or 10% of that in China. So litigations are happening when startups, companies start fighting against each other on patent infringement. And the reason why that happens is that they have started to use technology that somebody else produced, got IP rights on, and they just copied that, or willfully or not, it doesn't matter. The law says that if you're practicing that and there is not an agreement, a patent is a small monopoly for 20 years on a certain technology. So if there's no agreement, there's an infringement. And what I'm trying to say here and summarize is, if we approach the switch and turn on the light, we see the light turning on immediately. With patents, we make a decision today, we see that having an effect in 2-3 years. And most of the times, we miss this correlation, causation, and we just treat infringements as things that can happen in the future, like, I don't know, a car accident, and we have insurance on these things, but we don't realize that these things could have been avoided on day one, and a recurring freedom to operate check of the market. Just as you check competitors, you should check IP. And you could have seen that coming miles and miles away without getting to litigation. And what I said about up to $4 million per case, I'm not even saying like stating here that is up to 2 years of work if you're lucky. So you've got people working 2 years on that. You've got resources allocated to that for 2 years. Money, people, legal. It's a clusterfuck for a business. So there's no other way of saying that.
And we're doing a lot of efforts, actually. It's not even to convince, but to raise awareness between founders and investors in this direction.
It's like why we do the check on day one, because we want to avoid getting there. That's entirely.
And we want to. I know that IP. People have very different ideas around IP, and it creates a lot of streams and doubts, and people talk about patent trolls. So on one hand, we feel there is a lot of ignorance. It's normal. We will not be here if we didn't have all the career and things that we went through with IP. We saw a lot of things before, and we are not even being some kind of prophets who are coming from the future telling you what to do. It's simply a fact that the number of patents that have been generating in the past 35 months was 1 million, but also it's the number that took 75 years before this date to generate like 1 million patents. So we are now facing to this date, meaning like 75 years in the past from the day one of the USPTO, and that's the USPTO alone, the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And what we see now is that this is a skyrocketing and more technically called exponential growth of patents in the space, and we can't tell that enough. It's like, if you don't know about patents, it's equally important as having a good team and having a good idea and having a great product market fit. So I see already a question here, even though we didn't even start. I feel like we are
No,
passionate about the topic. So all
no,
investors and good entrepreneurs reduce risk and increase returns. Of course, returns are always about, for sure we can decrease the risk there because we bring awareness in the process. So the returns are always about how the team executes that, what type of funding they get, what is the timing, what is the market. There are so many variables there. So we are trying to reduce uncertainty. Knowing more about the patents is not only about awareness, but trying to reduce uncertainty and therefore risk. And Nick, actually, I want to take a chance I don't know if you had anything else to add around if people know what kind of game they're playing, but we know that I wanted to take this opportunity to show that there are actually long-term strategic benefits of using patent insights for startups, and it actually comes down to three, right? It's like market leadership, you can avoid pitfalls, and you can actually explore innovation opportunities. So you will say, like, how does it fit with market leadership? So if you can understand and utilize IP insights and you're a startup, you can actually anticipate the market trends and position your innovations for future relevance and dominance. This is actually what we have been observing from all the retrospective analysis that we did with companies like Uber and all the bigger unicorns. Now, the part on avoiding pitfalls, that's actually a tricky one. So if you get like a comprehensive patent analysis, you definitely help yourself in avoiding costly litigations, and you basically ensure, actually, I can't guarantee that, but you can actually ensure on going a better trajectory to have a freedom to operate, so that you can secure a smoother path for market success. And on the third dimension that comes to my mind is also something called the innovation opportunity. So if you identify the underexplored areas within your technology and your business idea, but through the patent trends, because that's the tricky part. That's the important part that we're offering here. So if you can identify the underexplored or underserved areas through the patent trends, you can definitely you might lead to breakthrough innovations, because you can see what is the direction of either technology life cycles. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, if we can call it technology life cycles, but also you can create these breakthrough innovations, and that can give you your startup a first mover advantage.
Totally.
Maybe
And on the innovation side, totally agree. But one of the points you just mentioned, which is the pitfall avoidance, that is where I really see a fit for Evalify. And I just would like to provide another figure here, so the audience here understands even better this. So we're talking about the fact that when a litigation happens, in the 97% of the cases, the parties settle simply because they need to stop bleeding money. It's something that can span through years, and they simply settle a center point and say, okay, I can at least quantify the damage and stop wasting resources on that. And you also have to understand that 65% of the entire cases today are in high-tech sectors. And when you start correlating this with the fact that most of the people say there are no software patents, there's no such a thing like a software patent, or there are no this is just a SaaS, why should I care about patents and so on, revenue speaks louder than IP. You don't see this coming until it hits you. And that's why we provocatively said many times, like, do you really understand the game you're playing last time? All these figures we've been sharing are here just for your awareness. And with this, I'll move straight to the next topic, because all these figures, you have already heard about it from us today.
And Nick, actually, I was actually going to ask you, because we had this great conversation and it was actually fun. It's like the
Yes.
diner or the dinner, and it's really fun to even show we've been asked this a lot in so many ways. If we have examples, so if we cover this briefly, you know that we actually spoke, and I see that we have a slide already on this, and you know the high-profile cases and the outcomes of those.
Yeah, you can see here, Juno Therapeutics versus Kite Pharma. Over 6 years, the parties, the jury at certain point initially awarded 1-2 billions, to Juno, and then it got reversed later on. So they wasted 4 times of fighting, and they didn't even reach a conclusion. 4 years of fighting, you don't get to a conclusion. Research in Motion and NTP, the other case below, over 600 millions at stake. They settled for that amount. It lasted over 5 years, and after that, actually, RIM, BlackBerry, they never got back on track, and they never recovered from brand reputation issues, and the price of the stocks never recovered. There are even more recent cases, NanoString versus 10x Genomics. They're still fighting. And over 30 millions already, a year and a half in running through this. If you're a startup, this is huge amount of money. You could have just moved on and grow. Instead, you need to keep fighting for your own rights, and why we got there at all.
And actually, I recognize that you keep saying but these things are not really publicly available, and it's so hard even for us to find a use case, a compelling use case, to show that these things happen, and over and over the years they have been happening. They're going to happen even more, and looks like there is no force that can stop that, and the legal machine will just go on. And it's really for not only for awareness, as I say, it's really a risk that you cannot afford to take. And this is also why, not even selling to you, our price point is so low, because we want to make sure that even founders of any kind, of any geography, can afford these, and their investors too. Yeah, and their investors too. So we know that I've been asking myself, and this question actually has come up a lot in the past 3 weeks. We spoke to legal firms, to investors, to startup founders from Europe and US, even South America, Latin America as well. So there is we see that the startup ecosystem doesn't really perceive the IP in a compelling way, and we felt how we can change this perception. So we observed and noticed that the general perception of that, it's as you were saying before also, there is a relevant and prevalent underestimation of the strategic value that the IP among startups often is viewed as a secondary consideration, definitely after product development and market entry. We know that because startups are really focused either on marketing or building a product, and they don't have the means and the time and the willingness to, or the mindset even to, or the resources to focus on the IP. Yeah, and the way we're changing the dynamics there with Evalify is that we are the first one democratizing the access to the comprehensive patents insights. So we are empowering the startups to integrate IP considerations into their core strategic decisions, in the DNA of that. And we believe we can foster a culture that values this type of long-term planning and sustainability. And we can show how to do that. We can show the way, and it will be a great picture or an X-ray or where your startup is at. Or if you're an investor, it can really show you what could be the risks of that, and even understanding from the technology perspective and the patent perspective where that startup is at. And there are things that are actually legally binding. We offer the patent competitors list. I bet no one is offering that unless you go and search yourself on a very expensive patent search database that you have to pay for. And
if you know what to search.
Yeah, if you know what to search. First, there is a barrier of entry, which is, I can't pay $20,000 or euros for that software. Then I need to know how to search. I need to know my technology, what to search, and founders simply don't have that. We are founders too, but without our IP experience, we will not know how to search these things. So there are so many aspects there. So we're observing these changing dynamics in the landscape, and we believe we can really democratize the access to that. And we're also aware that we are confronted with the general perception about the IP, and it's fair because it has been one of the most controversial things, and also we believe it can change. So Evalify is a tool that can change that. Now, what role does IP play, right, in in the evaluation and the funding stages of startups?
Well, as we just said, we do have different considerations. There are investment considerations and there are startup evaluation boosts. So from a founder's perspective, the fact you can understand immediately what is your niche, what is your hedge, what is the novel thing you're doing, can already shape entirely the strategy in building a product and keep building the company. And having effective management and a strategic use of that information to start building an IP, to start building your own IP, and to start building, your business plan, that simply makes it far more attractive investment opportunity to investors that have a higher consideration of that, because they are the first one who lack the experience, or better, the IP thinking when they are evaluating companies, and this, strong companies that have this IP thinking are just going to be far more appreciated, because they have thought about the business plan from different angles, different directions, and it's just an indicator that the company and the founders have the right mindset to keep innovating. They have this innovation capacity, and they know that if they've been working on the FTO, they also know that is a viable business in the market. So there are a lot of intersection here, a lot of information, and insights that can be inferred just from the Evalify FTO preliminary FTO analysis and the FTO score. So
Totally.
much to,
Yeah, and we see that a lot, right? We recognize again, like, people miss the tools, and you need to do your homework as a startup, right? You still have to create your pitch deck, of course, otherwise you can't even ingest it in Evalify. And you need to know what your business idea is and get the right team. This is important. Nothing is a substitute. IP is not a substitute for success. So now I wanted to cover something.
It's a very good indicator.
Yeah, it's a very good indicator, right? So it's actually paving the way for you to see if we were saying before, if that's an innovation. If that's it has a risk, or maybe we spoke to so many founders. We've been there too. Oh, my idea is great. I'm gonna pitch it to everyone, and then it's a hard realization of reality. Seeing that someone maybe 12 years ago had the same idea, and it's gonna be just gonna face a wall. But it's better that you do it such an early stage, because maybe there are aspects of that taking a feature or pitch deck that are actually good and innovative, but there are other parts that it's not even for the infringement, but you will realize that you were not innovative as you thought you were. And the same happened to us. We ran our pitch deck of Evalify in our own platform, and we had a low score. I'm not afraid to say that. We had a low score and high risk, because we were focusing on features, not only that maybe the clients didn't want it, but even and we had a way to test it with the IP landscape. And we learned a lot from this exercise of going through, observing the landscape and where the others have been failing, and also on one hand, and also where we could not go, and where this landscape was highly populated. So that was such an important realization, and we decided to change our roadmap accordingly. So they're even tangible. We have such a long list of startups we are helping with the score, but also with the infringement risk analysis that we give, and FTO, of course. So now maybe we're a bit going out of trying to wrap up with maybe if there are more questions, but I have a question or actually a topic that came up this week And we know that, for example, we talk about patent litigation costs. And I do believe that there are two things that came up, and you were with me in this call, Nick. So they actually, there are regional differences in patent litigation costs, and that basically impact the startup strategies actually across different markets. And two things came to our conversations where like there are regional cost variations, and maybe you can give an example of US, and then there were some strategic adjustments to be done, and how they can be done.
Yeah, I think we covered it even before. It's 2 to 4 millions for US alone. Then we go straight up to half a million in Europe, and then we can get up to 1 million in Japan, and 10% of that, 150 to $200,000 in China. So these regional differences are just simply because of the patent laws, and the enforceability laws are different. There are different costs as well, and stakes are different. So there are also regional considerations, but in the US alone, it's up to 4 millions per case, and there are so many other hidden costs which we are not saying here. But you can imagine, you can go up to 2.5 million per patent when you are examining things for several years, and that is simply unsustainable for most of the startups. Most of the startups just settle so that they know how to frame the cost, and try to find a way to get to that money to close it there. And if imagine you're an investor and you're fundraising, and 70% of the money you're investing goes to settle on a litigation, how do you feel? If you're a founder of the company, how do you feel?
And Nick, we had also a case from people in our circle. It's not fair to say names and stuff, but there was like big corporate from the States, and the startup had raised 35 million, and half of that went into litigation just because they haven't considered to, IP or attraction or revenue speaks out louder than IP. And it's one of the cases that we hear a lot. Even from investors in our circle. And we will be surprised, but by talking with an investor, they will open up and say, "Oh, yes, we had an IP risk. Maybe you have these 100 companies you invested in, 2 become unicorns, and some of them, for sure, statistically, had an issue with IP. So why not considering that at the very beginning and do something with that?" So most things are the number we're showing, like even generous in terms of this is the lower end. So we have even bigger numbers that are not shown. That's why I was talking about this case that is like 14 million, but it can be 50 million, and there are big corporates that will go after you. This is not to scare you, because that's actually why Evalify is in place, and you can try it. I don't know where you see the link here, but you can go ahead and visit our website. You even have a discount here if you have the QR code. For those also who will listen to the recording, feel free to reach out to us. We are available on LinkedIn. Nick, I don't know if we have more questions from the crowd.
No. There were no questions. Just a couple of comments. I do not see them here.
Yeah, there was this one actually.
Reduce risk and increase returns. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, that was a great one. Yes. So we are here for you. We are here to help. We say it because we are founders. We've been there, and we talk to investors. So we more and more, right? And we know what we are closer to the problems, and we feel IP doesn't come a lot in the conversation. So we want to bring that conversation to be more meaningful and bring awareness, and that's what we are here for with Evalify, among everything. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to have a series of these sessions. I know it's summer. I know that many of you are probably going to watch us on the recording from your seaside location or mountains. Yeah, happy to connect. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or email.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.